welcome you all to the second webinar in our webinar series under the Greenovation SustainAgri Challenge. So, thanks to each one of you for joining.
Can you be a little louder?
And a very warm welcome to all our esteemed speakers. It's a real privilege to have you all joining us this evening. So, in our first episode of the webinar, if you can mute the participants who are not speaking, if you can mute yourself, that will be easier for us. So in our first episode of the webinar series, we explored how community-led agroecology can scale climate adaptation. And today we are turning our attention to something equally exciting, that is technology for regenerative agriculture and how it can enable a more climate resilient and inclusive farming system. So, but before we dive into the discussion, for those of you who have joined us for the first time, I would like to briefly introduce you to SwitchON and SwitchON Foundation, as well as I will like to give you a brief about the SustainAgri Challenge. So, SwitchON Foundation is a leading non-profit organization, and we are actively working in the fields of climate resilient agriculture, distributed renewable energies, youth skill development and entrepreneurship for the past 17 years. And presently, we have a strong presence in almost 10 states of India. And alongside us, we have SwitchON Foundation USA, which is a 501c3 nonprofit aimed to support bold grassroots innovators and early stage entrepreneurs in India and Global South. So the Greenovation SustainAgri Challenge is an initiative of SwitchON Foundation in collaboration with SwitchON Foundation. And through this challenge, we are seeking to identify and support technologies, business models, and on-ground projects that are driving sustainable and climate-resilient agriculture in India. And this challenge is open for both startups as well as non-profits and NGOs. And there's a non-dilutive cash award of up to 20 lakhs for the winners, with access to mentorship, capacity building, visibility, and networking. And currently the applications are open and the deadline is the 14th of August. So if you are interested in applying, you can check out the detailed eligibility criteria and all the other information on our official website at www.. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop that in the chat box or reach out to us. Now I would request my colleague Mrinal to play a short video about the challenge, which will give you a quick overview of the challenge. So Mrinal, if you can play the video.
Agriculture is under strain and the pressure keeps rising. Soils are weaker, weather's wilder, farmers are left to adapt alone. But what if the solutions already exist and just need a push? The Greenovation SustainAgri Challenge is here to find them. An initiative by SwitchON and SwitchON Foundation. We are looking for startups and NGOs working on innovative and practical solutions. We want to hear from you. Startups with scalable tech, NGOs with community-driven models. This challenge is for both. Wondering what's in it for you? Win up to 20 lakhs rupees in non-dilutive grants, plus capacity building sessions and networking opportunities. The future of Indian agriculture needs grounded innovation. Apply now.
Thank you, Mrinal. So I hope this gives everyone a clearer picture of the program and what we are aiming to achieve. We will be dropping the application link in the chat box. You can see it and you can go through and apply for it. So without further ado, I would like to begin with today's session and with immense lists today. So first, we have with us Mr. Hemendra Mathur, venture partner at Bharat Innovation Fund. So Mr. Mathur is a visionary investor, entrepreneur, and ecosystem builder with nearly 3 decades of experience across venture capital, private equity, and policy advisory. He brings deep insight into building impactful ventures, supporting startups in agriculture, healthcare, clean energy, and energy, a platform that connects agri-tech startups with industry and policymakers. So we welcome you, sir, to our today's session and look forward to hearing your insights. Next in the panel, we have the pleasure to welcome Dr. Praveen, a passionate innovation leader and CEO of AICCCRI. So with years of experience in managing Agri Rafta programs across leading agri incubators like Manage and UAS Dharwad, has spent years mentoring leaders, building ecosystems, and enabling grassroots innovation. And with an entrepreneurial background, including ventures like Archie's Business Solution and Live Technologies, he committed to bridging the gap between research and real-world solutions. So we welcome you, sir, to today's session and look forward to hearing your insights. Next in our panel, we have Dr. Renuka. So she's the co-founder and CEO of BioPrime Agri Solutions, one of India's leading agri-biotech innovators. So Dr. Renuka is a scientist and entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in plant biotechnology and genetic engineering. And under her leadership, BioPrime has built India's largest plant-associated microbe library and developed innovative biological solutions that help farmers tackle extreme weather and boost yields. So we welcome you, ma'am, to our today's session. We also are honored to have with us Ms. Huda Zafar, Director at Selco Foundation, who is the moderator of today's session. And I would like to take a moment to introduce her. So with a background in design from Srishti School of Earth Design and Technology, and a master's in engineering and business from MIT. She brings a unique blend of creativity and systems thinking to development, and she has been instrumental in shaping Selco Foundation into a pioneer in sustainable energy access for underserved communities. Her work focuses on user-centric design, clean technology, and energy solutions that support climate adaptation and serve those at the last mile. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. And before handing over the session to Huda ma'am, I would like to mention that we are sorry to inform one of our esteemed panelists for today's session, Mr. Rajat Vardhan, will not be able to join us today due to certain medical emergency. So we pray for his quick recovery. And without further ado, I would like to request Huda ma'am to take over. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Ananya. Good evening to everyone joining us, and a warm welcome to the three panelists, Dr. Praveen, Dr. Renuka, and Hemendra ji. Wonderful to have you here, and it's my honor to get to moderate all of you. So looking forward to the session. I think let me just set a little bit of a context, and then we can get going with some of the questions. We'll spend about 10 minutes talking to each of the speakers, and then we'll spend around 20 minutes interacting with the audience post that. Feel free to put in your questions in the chat so that we can sort of look at it and try to structure it when we're asking the questions to the speakers. So welcome one and all. And without further ado, I will just share my screen and set a small context on what we have been doing and where we are on regenerative agriculture and the role that smart technologies play in regenerative agriculture. Now, as you know, India moves to a different scenario from an agri perspective, right? I think there's a lot of talk around all different types of sustainable agri practices, and you know, it could be organic, it could be natural farming, it could be regenerative practice, etc. All of them kind of come into this broader bucket, right? How do we restore soil health? How do we increase resilience of farmers? How do we really reduce input resource cost? How do we make things much more efficient and optimized? And at the end of it, how do we really kind of impact livelihoods and food security? So all of it sort of falls under that, under these four umbrellas, right? Now, the role that technology can play is twofold. So across the value chain, technology can play a significant role, right? Either technology can reduce the barriers for adoption. So let's say there are clusters and organizations and farmers that are moving from a traditional or a chemical practice to a bio-based, to a more sustainable practice or a regenerative practice. Technology can play two roles. Either it can reduce the barriers for adoption, significantly, so that you can really find it a lot more easier, as well as really kind of optimize for yield and improve your yield and incomes. Right, those are the two roles that technology can play, either by bringing down drudgery or by significantly making things a lot more efficient and reducing your cost. Right now, across the value chain, we see a huge role that technology can play in regenerative agriculture. Right, just to give you some examples of the challenges that it basically addresses, right? Whether it's access to good quality indigenous seeds. So there is a lot of need for setting up seed banks at a community level, access to organic seeds, good ecological practice seeds, right? Access to biochar, access to organic fertilizers, good kind of pest management solutions, which are helping people move away from it. And issues also sort of play a huge role. Technology also plays a huge role in land preparation issues. One of the other very kind of underrated challenge that we see across the board is the on-farm issue. One is, of course, the input side. But in on-farm practices, when we worked with people practicing regenerative agriculture, we've managed to actually bring down man days from 10 man days to 1 man day per month. Costs from, let's say, anywhere from 20 to 80% of costs on the labor side, on the effort, on the time side. So these are some of the problem statements and impacts that we can see. And of course, on the post-harvest, there's also a fair bit of opportunity in regen agriculture on the circularity piece as well, right? So with that, I'll basically talk about just a few some examples of things that we've seen really transform. So one of this is things like technologies like seed graders, seed dryers, threshers, destoners. These can play a huge role in ensuring that farmers are able to do what is necessary on farm, and the forward linkage is able to better adopt the yield from the regen practice, right? So these kind of technologies become very critical. Things like even cold storages for seeds, things like seed germination, nursery beds, etc. Similarly, on-farm solutions. So this is the example that I was talking about, where you really see a cost of paddy cultivation go down because of the technology integration. And without the technology integration, it remains a very expensive and drudgerous proposition as well, right? Similarly, these are solar powered Jeevamrita making units, which are very locally kind of enabled units to produce biofermenters, organic fertilizers, and sort of supply them at an SHG level, at a FPO level as well, right? Similarly, whether it's precision agriculture, IoT based, drone based, I think these are examples that all of you may be aware of. But one of the things that we've seen is this is in the top 5 examples of how can you move better to regenerative practices. And in order to basically scale, similarly, these are intelligent irrigation systems, IoT-based systems. And in order to sort of scale effectively, you do need a combination of not only the innovation and technology, you do need finance along with that, you do need better linkages, you have to continue to provide this enabling policy conditions for it, and ensuring that we can build capacities across the board along the way. Now, each of the panelists will be providing and shedding lights on these different elements, whether it's policy, finance, innovation, etc. So we look forward to sort of diving into that. And thank you for your patience to actually listen to some of the context setting. Feel free to add questions around it. So with that, I'll open up the panel with Hemendra ji. Welcome, sir. So already, you've been introduced, so I'll dive right into the question. There are 2 questions.
Hello, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt. So I just wanted to let you know if we can switch between the languages, like a mix of Hindi and English, because there are some audiences who also wants the session to be in Hindi. So if they can be switched, then that would help our audience.
Not an issue. If you would have told me this earlier, I would have done more
It's
of
okay, sir.
context.
Thank you.
No problem at all. तो धर्मेंद्र जी, if you can shed light, एक तो जो है, अगर हम टेक्नोलॉजी का रोल क्या है रीजनरेटिव एग्रीकल्चर में, अगर आप कुछ एग्जांपल्स के साथ दे सकते हैं कि कैसे टेक्नोलॉजी ने बैरियर्स रिड्यूस किया है अडॉप्शन के लिए, या फिर कैसे टेक्नोलॉजी ने और आसान किया है रीजनरेटिव प्रैक्टिसेस को अपटेक करने में, वो आप अगर थोड़ा इलैबोरेट कर सकते हैं.
Thank you. No, thanks very much for setting the context, and thanks to Earthon for inviting us to this wonderful panel. And good to see some of the fellow panelists. I've known them for many years. So great, good question. So I'll tell you, most of my work has been with a lot of innovators and startups who have developed interesting solution. तो कुछ solution है climate risk mitigation पे और कुछ solution है climate adaptation पे, right? These are two big buckets, broad buckets. तो अगर मैं टेक्नोलॉजी की बात करूं तो जैसे क्लाइमेट रिस्क की हम बात करते हैं तो काफी वेरिएबल्स हैं, राइट? रेनफॉल, टेम्परेचर, ह्यूमिडिटी, सॉइल हेल्थ, पेस्ट अटैक, जो किसान के कंट्रोल में नहीं है, राइट? और अगर आपको क्लाइमेट रिस्क कम करना है तो समझना पड़ेगा कि रिस्क कितना बड़ा है और हर एक रिस्क की क्या प्रोबेबिलिटी है, राइट? एंड आई थिंक दैट्स वेयर द रोल ऑफ डेटा कम्स इनटू पिक्चर. आपको डेटा चाहिए जो एक्यूरेट हो, आपको डेटा चाहिए जो ऑलमोस्ट रियल टाइम हो, और आपको उस डेटा को कुछ एनालिटिक्स या एडवाइजरी कन्वर्ट करने का एक माध्यम चाहिए, राइट? तो जो हम जब टेक्नोलॉजी की बात करते हैं तो जैसे बहुत सिंपल एक चीज है वेदर स्टेशन, राइट? उससे आप वेदर का काफी सारा डेटा एक जगह कैप्चर कर लेता है. अभी सरकार ने एक अपना बहुत बड़ा अभियान चला रखा है जिसके अंदर जितने भी हमारे जिले हैं और जिलों के अंदर जितने ब्लॉक हैं, हर ब्लॉक में एक वेदर स्टेशन होगा. तो एक फार्मर के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बहुत ही स्पेसिफिक वेदर डेटा पॉइंट आपको मिल पाएंगे, राइट? और इनके साथ एक आईओटी डिवाइस लगी होती है, तो आप वो डेटा कैप्चर करते हो और आईओटी डिवाइस से तुरंत आपके पास आ जाएगा. एंड थैंकफुली लॉट ऑफ फार्मर्स है मोबाइल फोन्स, तो आपको ट्रांसमिट भी बहुत ही जल्दी हो जाएगा, राइट? तो बहुत ही सिंपल एग्जांपल है. सेकंड, आजकल आपके काफी सारे सेंसर डिवाइसेस आ गई हैं, आईओटी डिवाइसेस आ गई हैं. उससे आप सॉइल के बारे में डेटा, या आपको कहीं पेस्ट अटैक होने वाला है उसका डेटा भी मिल सकता है. उसकी एक्यूरेसी थोड़ी अलग अलग लेवल पे है, बट धीरे धीरे हम उस डायरेक्शन में जा रहे हैं कि आपको काफी अच्छा डेटा मिल पाएगा, राइट? इवन आपके मोबाइल फोन जो कि कई किसानों के पास होते हैं स्मार्टफोन्स, उसका आप प्लांट की पिक्चर लीजिए और आपको बता देगा कि इसमें अभी पेस्ट अटैक हुआ है और किस तरह का पेस्टिसाइड आपको डालना है, या कौन सा आपको मतलब सॉल्यूशन इसमें लगाना है. तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा बदलाव आया है पिछले आई वुड से 8-10 सालों में, जब हम कितने सारे सॉल्यूशंस देख रहे हैं मोस्टली डेवलप्ड बाय इनोवेटर्स. दे हैव देयर हार्डवेयर डिवाइसेस एंड उस हार्डवेयर के बेसिस पे उन्होंने डेटा कलेक्ट किया, उस पर काफी इंटरेस्टिंग एनालिटिक्स प्लेटफॉर्म बनाया जिससे कि किसानों को सही समय पे सही एडवाइस दी जाए और साथ में सॉल्यूशन दी जाए, राइट? इसका जो यूज सिर्फ किसानों के लिए नहीं है. आपको किसान को लोन देना है तब भी आपको किसान के फार्म असेट्स की रिस्क प्रोफाइल की जरूरत पड़ती है. तो लोन देने में भी इस तरह का डेटा बहुत आगे काम आने वाला है, जिसमें एक बैंकर उस खेत का एक रिस्क प्रोफाइल, एक क्रेडिट स्कोर बना सकता है बेसिस ऑल द डेटा पॉइंट विच आर बीइंग कलेक्टेड, राइट? इंश्योरेंस में बहुत बड़ा रोल है. आपको जब इंश्योर करना है तो किस बेसिस पे करोगे? इंश्योरेंस के लिए बहुत सारा डेटा चाहिए होता है मॉडलिंग के लिए कि कितना रिस्क है, उसका कितना प्रीमियम होगा, उसकी प्रोबेबिलिटी क्या है उस इवेंट होने की. तो ये एक मैं कह रहा हूँ बहुत बड़ा बदलाव आया है. एक भारतीय कृषि में ऐसा डिजिटाइजेशन शायद पहले कभी नहीं देखा गया, और मुझे लगता है आने वाले 10-15 साल तो और भी ज्यादा इस तरह के सॉल्यूशंस एक अलग लेवल पे जाएंगे. मुझे इसका काफी अच्छा स्कोप लगता है. दूसरा आई वुड से क्लाइमेट अडॉप्टेशन, जिसमें कि आपके पास प्रोडक्ट्स हैं जो कि क्लाइमेट के चैलेंजेस को थोड़ा कम कर सकते हैं, आपकी क्रॉप को तैयार कर सकते हैं कोई भी एडवर्स क्लाइमेट इवेंट के लिए. I think Renuka will talk about her solution, which is also very interesting solution. So essentially use of biologicals, which reduces the use of chemical solutions which are available in the market. काफी सारे सॉल्यूशंस आए जो वाटर यूज एफिशिएंसी को बढ़ा देते हैं, जैसा हाइड्रोजेल है कि EF पॉलीमर करके कंपनी है, उसने हाइड्रोजेल बनाया तो उससे पानी की खपत आधी हो जाती है. अब सॉइल में डालिए और पानी रूट जोन के आसपास ही रुक जाता है, तो उससे पानी की खपत कम हो जाती है. और जैसे ऊर्ध्वम करके एक है जो बोर्ड चार्जर पे काम कर रहे हैं, वो मतलब एक्विफायर्स को रिचार्ज करने में मदद करता है. तो इस तरह की जो सॉल्यूशंस हैं, तो कुछ पैकेज और प्रैक्टिसेस भी काफी आई हैं, जिस जैसे नो टिलेज, इस तरह का भी काफी सारे सॉल्यूशंस आए. तो मेरे ख्याल से हम जहां बैठे हैं मुझे नहीं लगता कि सॉल्यूशंस की कमी है। सॉल्यूशंस आ रहे हैं और आते रहेंगे। थैंकफुली वी हैव अ गुड बंच ऑफ क्लाइमेट एंटरप्रेन्योर्स इन द कंट्री। जो मुझे चैलेंज लगता है और शायद जो आज के कॉल पे हम सबको डिस्कस भी करना चाहिए कि ये सॉल्यूशन क्या किसान तक पहुंच पा रहे हैं, और नहीं पहुंच पा रहे हैं तो क्या माध्यम से पहुंचा जाए, क्योंकि कोई भी सॉल्यूशन है उसकी कॉस्ट होती है, तो कहीं ना कहीं वो बियर करनी पड़ेगी। किसान भी तभी अडॉप्ट करेगा जब उसको उसका फायदा दिखेगा, राइट। तो वो क्या बैरियर्स हैं अडॉप्टेशन के या इन सॉल्यूशंस को पे करने के लिए जो जो किसान तक पहुंचना चाहिए, वो बिहेवियरल चेंज हम कैसे लाएं एक मास लेवल पे, और इसमें अवेयरनेस कैसे बढ़ाई जाए, एक्सेसिबिलिटी कैसे बढ़ाई जाए, अफोर्डेबिलिटी कैसे बढ़ाई जाए। दीज आर थ्री वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एज टू ड्राइव क्लाइमेट मिटिगेशन, क्लाइमेट अडॉप्टेशन एट स्केल। छोटे छोटे लेवल पे तो कर ही रहे हैं काफी लोग, लेकिन स्केल पे डाल ले जाने के लिए अवेयरनेस, accessibility and affordability, that becomes very critical and that drives the adaptation. तो ये कुछ, I don't think I have covered all the solution because time is limited, but all I want to say is there is enough in the market right now, and my fellow panelists can also detail out some of the solutions which they are working on. And I'll stop here and maybe I'll come back after some time.
Thank you, Dharmendra ji. Maybe I can ask you a quick follow-up so that there's some continuity. You mentioned that scale is one of the major challenges. Just like how you elaborated on the number of solutions, types of solutions, and the effectiveness of the solutions, can you also maybe speak to one or two ways in which some successful innovations or technologies have scaled and have been effective, and how have they, what are some of the, I would say, what are some of the learnings for people to scale technologies and to really adopt in these 3 A's and move faster?
हाँ, तो जैसे आई डोंट नो इफ यू नो अबाउट दिस कंपनी स्टार्टअप कॉल्ड प्लांटिक्स। उन्होंने एक ऐप बनाई है जिससे आप मोबाइल फोन से पिक्चर लीजिए और वो तुरंत पेस्ट डिटेक्ट कर लेता है, टाइप ऑफ पेस्ट बता देता है, और ये भी बता देता है कि क्या इसमें किस तरह का इसमें लगने वाला है एप्लीकेशन टू किल द पेस्ट और रिमूव द पेस्ट। तो उनके कुछ 1-2 करोड़ के आसपास डाउनलोड है, मतलब आई थिंक क्लोजर टू 2 करोड़ इफ आई एम करेक्ट अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड। तो ये तो है कि वो सॉल्यूशन बहुत सिंपल है, उसमें आपको कोई और डिवाइस लगानी नहीं है, आपको सिर्फ फोटो खींचनी है और वो क्लाउड पे जाता है, इमेज एनालिटिक्स होती है, एआई लगती है और आपको सॉल्यूशन मिल जाता है। तो इसका कारण अडॉप्टेशन है कि सॉल्यूशन बहुत सिंपल है, आपको कुछ एडिशनल खर्चा नहीं करना, राइट। नाउ वेदर इज प्लांटिक्स मेकिंग मनी ऑन इट इज अ डिफरेंट क्वेश्चन, सो दैट ऑफ कोर्स वी शुड डिस्कस कि वो सॉल्यूशन की सस्टेनेबिलिटी है या नहीं, राइट। बट स्केल हो गया, there's enough adaptation, right? Likewise, Big Heart ने crop doctor बनाया, which is very similar, and they've also picked up. And thankfully, with application of AI, मुझे लगता है इनकी accuracy level बहुत अलग level पे जा सकती है आने वाले time में, right? वो हो गया biologicals, and again, Renuka probably is a better person to talk about it. But I see many biological solutions. There's a company which is called Agri, जिन्होंने सीवीड एप्लीकेशन से बड़े अच्छे solutions बनाए। उन्होंने इफ्को के साथ पार्टनर किया, और जो मुझे पता है कि शायद 200 से 300 करोड़ के बीच में उनका टर्नओवर पहुंच गया है, बहुत अच्छी प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी है। तो अगेन सॉल्यूशन की एफिकेसी पे काफी कुछ डिपेंड करता है कि वो कितना स्केल होगा। आई थिंक उसमें ये भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि किसान ना कोई 5 साल तक नहीं वेट करने वाला सॉल्यूशन को इफेक्टिव देखने के लिए, उसे तो उसी क्रॉप साइकिल में इम्पैक्ट चाहिए, राइट। तो ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पैरामीटर है कि आपका जो जो भी सॉल्यूशन है उसका यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स जो हम बोलते हैं हमारे इन्वेस्टर लैंग्वेज में, कि अगर किसान किसी चीज का 1 रुपया दे रहा है तो उसे क्या 3 या 5 रुपए का फायदा हो रहा है, चाहे वो पैसा बचा रहा है या पैसा ज्यादा इनकम कर रहा है। तो ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पैरामीटर है स्केल से रिलेटेड। ये और स्केल सिर्फ फार्मर के लिए काम नहीं करना चाहिए, वो जो इनोवेटर है, चाहे स्टार्टअप हो या कोई कंपनी हो, उसके लेवल पे भी काम करना चाहिए। क्या वो उसे 1 रुपए में दे के भी पैसे बना रहा है या नहीं? तो अगर वो यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स आपकी काम नहीं करेगी तो ये सॉल्यूशन स्केल नहीं होंगे। इसमें लास्ट पॉइंट में ये बोलना चाहूंगा कि काफी सारे सॉल्यूशंस पे ना एक हमें अभी भी एक पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर चाहिए। जैसे मैंने वेदर स्टेशन की बात करी, कौन सा स्टार्टअप है जो गांव गांव में जाके वेदर स्टेशन लगा सकता है? नहीं है, राइट। स्काईमेट ने लगाया, WRMS ने लगाया, बट कितने लगा लेंगे? तो फिर सरकार को ही लगाने पड़ेंगे। लाइकवाइज जो ये डेटा लेयर्स की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ कि क्रॉप सिग्नेचर्स या आपको जो बेसिक डेटा चाहिए फॉर एनालिटिक्स, वो कौन लाएगा डेटा? वो कोई स्टार्टअप अपने लेवल पे कलेक्ट करेगा, बट इन ए सर्टेन ज्योग्राफी, इन ए सर्टेन क्रॉप। तो वो भी स्टैक्स जो है वो, तुम एटलीस्ट इन माय व्यू शुड बी पब्लिक गुड। वो कहीं ना कहीं सरकार या कोई मतलब इस तरह की कोई फिलांथ्रोपिक कैपिटल या फिलांथ्रोपिक इनिशिएटिव बनाया जाए जिससे कि ये स्केल कर पाए। वरना वो जब तक पब्लिक कैपिटल नहीं जाएगी तो प्राइवेट कैपिटल नहीं आएगी। Likewise for biologicals, again, the amount of time it takes for validation, the amount of money it takes for getting your certifications in place, this confusion around regulations. पहले biologicals नहीं थे, अब ये regulations में आ गए हैं। तो ये इसको कैसे सॉल्व करें हम? हाउ डू वी बिल्ड ट्रांसपेरेंसी, हाउ डू वी बिल्ड बेटर कम्युनिकेशन बिटवीन द रेगुलेटर्स एंड द इनोवेटर्स? तो ये एफर्ट भी उतने जरूरी हैं। मतलब मुझे नहीं लगता कि स्टार्टअप्स की कोई कमी है हमारे देश में। वी हैव अ फैंटास्टिक एंटरप्रेन्योरियल टैलेंट, बट हमारे इकोसिस्टम एंड स्पेशली इन एग्रीकल्चर, अभी कुछ मेहनत करी हम सब ने मिलकर पिछले 15 साल में, लेकिन अभी लगता है मुझे बहुत ज्यादा मेहनत की जरूरत है टू बिल्ड दोज इकोसिस्टम which are robust enough so that these innovations scale faster. अब हम क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस की बात करते हैं। क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस कहाँ से आ जाएगा जब किसान को मतलब क्लाइमेट फ्रेंडली प्रैक्टिसेस यूज करने का इंसेंटिव ही नहीं है? जस्ट क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस मींस फार्मर कैन हैव अ लोअर इंटरेस्ट रेट इफ हिज प्रैक्टिसेस आर क्लाइमेट रेजिलिएंट। तो ये रेगुलेटर कौन बनाएगा रेगुलेशन? ये आरबीआई बनाएगा, नाबार्ड बनाएगा? तो वो we should look at it in a more holistic way, especially if you want to drive scale. All we have today is some really good proof of concept these technologies work.
Sure.
And they can work far better if there's a platform which is available to scale them faster, which is a combination of a regulatory platform, infrastructural support, and of course capital support. I think private capital, as I said, will flow when there is enough public investment in some of these practices.
Right, right. No, thanks so much, sir, for really kind of capturing how do you ensure that, more scalable solutions are the ones which are simpler, which are low cost, which kind of have a very low barrier to things like supply chain servicing. Those are always very difficult and those require a lot more partnerships with government and ensuring that regulation around it is really working. And like you rightly mentioned, the ecosystem is very critical. It's not just about one piece finance. It's also about awareness, practices, policies, etc. that need to really kind of ramp up. So one last thing before I move to Dr. Praveen as well, you have really promoted farm-centric and farm-centric model, so because there are a lot of startups and innovators also on the call, how should they try to balance this, trying to scale a technology versus really looking at it from a farmer-centric perspective, because then you get into certain externalities or complexities which you may not have had in your product roadmap. Is there some advice for them that you would give to maintain a farm-centric focus?
मेरे ख्याल से जब तक कोई फार्म सेंट्रिक सॉल्यूशन इस सेक्टर में होगा नहीं तो उसका फ्यूचर है नहीं। मतलब आई डोंट सी देयर इज एनी अदर अल्टरनेटिव, राइट? So I think especially for entrepreneurs on this call, I think the farmer, I won't say farmer centricity, I would almost say the obsession with solving farmer problems. अब उस लेवल का कुछ भी बोलिए, ऑब्सेशन, इसेंट्रिसिटी, आई डोंट नो व्हाट इज द राइट वर्ड, चाहिए, क्योंकि उसके बिना नहीं होगा। हम ये शहर में बैठ के दिल्ली, बेंगलोर, बॉम्बे, पुणे में बैठ के हम ये सोल्यूशन नहीं बना सकते, राइट? तो मेरा तो जैसे कई एंटरप्रेन्योर से रहता है, तो मेरा तो पहला क्वेश्चन ही होता है कि गाँवों में कितना समय जा रहा है, राइट? तो अगर आप जब तक गाँव में जाओगे नहीं, आप देखोगे नहीं, आपको प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट ही समझ नहीं आएगा। हमारे एग्री टेक इनोवेटर का 4 से 5 पिवट तो होते ही है। उसका कारण क्या है? क्योंकि प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट ही क्लियर नहीं है। You are solving for problems which probably doesn't exist or doesn't exist to the intensity that you are thinking, right? तो फिर उसका मतलब उसका monetization नहीं हो पाता, right? So I think that is what is needed. We need to be very, very clear what we are solving for, and that can only come when you spend time there. In fact, I spend a lot of time in villages, and my biggest learning happened when I'm there, because आप यहाँ काफी सारे परसेप्शन, हाइपोथेसिस हैं। फार्मर डिजिटली लिटरेट नहीं है, उसके पास एक्सेस नहीं है, वो उसको ऐप डाउनलोड करना नहीं आता, या उस प्रोडक्ट समझाने में समय लगता है। काफी सारे मिथ आपके वहां जाके डिस्पेल हो जाते हैं व्हेन यू सी इट ऑन द ग्राउंड। आई थिंक आवर फार्मर इज अ वेरी स्मार्ट एंटरप्रेन्योर, उसको हमें एम्पावर करने की जरूरत है, एंड दैट इज वेयर ऑल दीज इनोवेटर्स कैन प्ले ह्यूज रोल। आई एम बैंकिंग दैट thankfully we have 10,000 plus agri entrepreneurs and at least 2,000 plus who have scaled to some level. To me this is the biggest hope for Indian agriculture. यही देश की समस्या सॉल्व करने वाले हैं। But my advice to all of them, please spend time on the ground. I think that will help you a lot. You will build solutions which will be very practical, and you can monetize them. You don't want to overbuild tech, you don't want to underbuild tech. वो समझ कहाँ से आएगी यार, right? So I think that is where the farm centricity, or farmer centricity rather, becomes very important.
No, I love that, and I think with that we'll move on to Dr. Praveen. I think the one thing to take away is it's not only farm centric. You need a certain obsession to make sure that you're solving a real problem and really spending time on getting the problem right. And even though you need to pivot, make sure that you get that problem and that value proposition right, which you can monetize. So with that, Dr. Praveen, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to start off with a question on coffee. How do you look at regenerative agri within the coffee value chain, given that it's quite a critical value chain in many regions globally as well? And there's a lot of climate and coffee talk that happens, right? So if you can give your perspective both on technology and regenerative agriculture in coffee, and then I'll ask you some follow-ups. Thank you, Dr.
Okay, thank you for providing this opportunity to speak to this forum. So, answering to your question, the coffee in India is grown under the shades, unlike many other countries where the coffee is grown on the flat land. So, coffee in India is grown under the shades, and we need forest to grow coffee in India, unlike any other crops, right? और अभी अभी क्या हुआ ना, बहुत सारे फार्मर्स हमारे पास आते हैं ट्रेनिंग के लिए। कॉफी बोर्ड का एक्सटेंशन डिपार्टमेंट है, वो उनको एक्सक्लूसिव ट्रेनिंग देता है बेस्ट फार्मिंग प्रैक्टिसेस के लिए। और हमारा जो भी स्टार्टअप्स है, वो स्टार्टअप्स के लिए कॉफी बोर्ड ने टेक्नोलॉजी एवेल्यूएशन सेंटर्स बन चुका है। कॉफी बोर्ड का सेपरेट अलग एस्टेट्स है अक्रॉस ऑल कॉफी ग्रोइंग रीजन्स। सो स्टार्टअप्स को कोई फील्ड ट्रायल्स करना है तो हमारा कॉफी बोर्ड का एस्टेट्स को यूज कर सकते हैं। ऐसा हमारा सपोर्ट सिस्टम है ऑलरेडी। अभी कॉफी और और अदर एग्रीकल्चर क्रॉप्स इन जनरल हम बात करिए तो बहुत सारे फार्मर्स को ये टेक्नोलॉजी अडॉप्शन का चैलेंजेस है। अभी हेमेंद्र सर ने बोलना था, ऐसे ही सेम चैलेंजेस है। मगर उससे पहले हमको क्या थिंक करना है कि हाउ मेनी ऑफ आवर स्टार्टअप्स आर एक्सपोज्ड टू क्वालिटी प्रॉब्लम्स। ओके, बहुत सारे स्टार्टअप्स अज्यूम करता है ये प्रॉब्लम एग्जिस्ट है फार्मर्स के लिए। वो अजम्पशन से वो स्टार्टअप प्रोडक्ट्स और सर्विसेज बिल्ड करके इंक्यूबेटर्स और कुछ इन्वेस्टर्स के पास आके फंड्स मांगते हैं। मगर वो फंडामेंटल नीड असेसमेंट और द प्रॉपर मार्केट रिसर्च नहीं किया तो जो भी हेमेंद्र माथुर सर ने भी बोल दिया ना, ऐसा ही हो जाएगा। एज ए इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर हमने देखा है बहुत सारे कॉफी बेस्ड स्टार्टअप्स है हमारे पास भी। वो रीजनरेटिव एग्रीकल्चर के बारे में ऑलरेडी काम कर रहा है। कुछ स्टार्टअप्स ऑलरेडी ऑनलाइन अभी सेशन भी ज्वाइन किया है। कॉफी बोर्ड का
Dr. Praveen, your video is frozen. His video is frozen, right? It's not me, right? Okay, great. So I think maybe we will move, Dr. Renuka, if you don't mind, we'll move to you, and hopefully Dr. Praveen will come back and then we can continue. So sorry about this to the audience. There are always these tech glitches, so we can't avoid it. But over to you, Dr. Renuka. Thank you so much for joining us. So we'll swiftly move ahead. We're very keen to understand a deep tech perspective, and making sure that and trying to sort of see how deep tech plays a role in promoting regenerative agriculture. So over to you, Dr. Renuka.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and lovely to be here. And thanks for organizing this conversation. Um, like Hemendra sir was saying, we've kind of been in the space for a very long time and seen the entire deep tech in agriculture also undergo a tremendous transformation. The space is very alive and buzzing,
Yeah,
and
sorry.
Pravin is back. So, what do you want to do? Do you want me to continue, or do you want to
Yes.
go back to
You can
him?
continue. I'll go back to Praveen.
All right. Okay. Um, so, just 5 or 6 years ago, the entire conversation around deep tech would have been very, very different than what it is today. Very specifically, just for the audience here, I would like to very broad level introduce what we do. So we are into ag biotech, and we use small molecules as well as microbes to develop novel cutting edge biological solutions. We address some of the most critical challenges that agriculture faces today, from climate resilience to soil health, plant health, chemical use, decreasing fertilizer use efficiency or nutrient use efficiency, as well as crop protection. So we try and develop solutions around each and every of these aspects. Um, Now coming to your question on regenerative agriculture, the moment anybody says regenerative agriculture, somehow we are led to think that it's probably very low tech or does not require intervention of technology. In fact, I feel इससे जुदा कोई दूसरी हकीकत नहीं हो सकती. We require a lot of intensive involvement in regenerative agriculture. So we are trying to grow the same kind of food, just change the way that we are growing the food. So, which means that we don't, earlier the farmer was only focusing on yields, but today his outcome is not going to be only measured in terms of yield, but is also going to be measured in terms of the soil or the land that he started with. Has he made it any better? Has he replenished the soil that he was growing his crops in? And is the food ultimately more nutritious than what he was growing earlier? So the entire parametrics around the regenerative agriculture is very different from a conventional agriculture, and therefore requires more intense use of technology, and definitely not less. Some of the solutions that fit right into this are obviously biologicals. Anything and everything that can enhance the quality of chemicals that we are using. Again, being a biological, I am not a proponent of going either side of that route. I mean, all chemicals are not bad. And painting the entire chemicals as the villains is also not going to get us anywhere. So we have to find this golden in between, where we are able to optimize the chemical use, where we are able to blend our biologicals into the existing systems, and find ways and means to reduce the chemical usages. So that goes around having better soil. That means you need to have better nutrient use efficiency. That means you need to have better plant immunity so that you don't have more diseases. And if you do have diseases, then have reduced severity around those diseases so that their management becomes easier. And biological solutions integrate perfectly into regenerative agriculture. However, like Hemendra was, mentioning before, there are a lot of tools and aids that the farmer requires, which goes around identifying deficiencies, identifying diseases and pests, where from remote sensing to like phone-based apps, all of these kind of technologies have come in. Early warning systems have come in, climate warning systems have come in. But beyond that, he requires some action on the ground to be done in terms of an agronomic practice or use of an input. And somewhere all of this needs to be integrated. Right now, it kind of is operating in silos. So what regenerative agriculture needs is an unification of all the warning systems, unification of agronomic practices, and bringing together biologicals so that he can, get the output in a better fashion. So addressing the how is very important in regenerative agriculture.
Thank you so much, Renuka ji. If I can ask you a quick follow-up on that. So, I think the role of enterprise is pretty clear. They need to get that solution right. They need to make sure that it works, that it's impactful. How is it ensuring that technology really becomes a catalyst to improving soil, water, etc. Now, if you can sort of expand, and you mentioned the how, and there are other factors that need to come together. Can you shed a little bit light on what role do you feel, and how can government play a much stronger role, both from a policy as well as an implementation perspective? And also, what role do you see civil society playing in promoting, scaling some of the things that are working already?
A very important question. So, in terms of government intervention, I think some of the steps that the government is doing in terms of bringing regulatory framework around biologicals, I think that's very, very important. Earlier, when the framework wasn't there, the entire biologicals was looked at from a very bad angle, and in fact, biologicals became a playground for selling spurious products. So laced with insecticides, laced with pesticides, and farmer kind of burn their fingers on this. So having that framework, having a definition around what kind of products, their composition, benchmarks around what compositions to expect, is definitely a positive step forward. From an implementation side, we just hope that these frameworks, these guidelines, all of this kind of gets implemented sooner than later. Did I lose you guys?
No, you're very much there. I think someone has shared screen, which is not me.
All right. Okay, I think somebody, by mistake,
I think,
clicked the, yeah, word. Okay.
go ahead, go ahead.
Exploration is always good. So, yeah. And from a government policy intervention perspective, so we've seen government take a very bold and positive step where neem coated urea became mandatory. From an intention of decreasing the leaching of nitrogen into the soil and protecting the nitrogen. Similar kind of interventions are required when it comes to having more of biological solutions being adopted. Whether we're talking about nutrient use efficiency, or we're talking about soil health itself. So mostly soil health is measured in terms of NPK. Very rarely we see soil organic carbon, and we don't see the biological component of soil health being reflected anywhere at all. And soil, unfortunately, is not a chemical structure. Soil is a living, breathing, biological organism, or multi-organisms together. And this, I think, is a fundamental piece that we are missing. So unless we have that integrated, we will not see what the true picture for the farmer is. What are the minerals in the soil? What are the biological functionalities available in the soil, and therefore what the farmer should be doing? We're very far away from that, actually.
Sure, sure. And then maybe a final question before moving to Dr. Praveen. India's largest plant microbe library. Can you tell us more about that, please?
Yeah, I mean, it's extension of what we were just speaking about, that we realize that the agriculture soils are very, very degraded. And also we fundamentally believe that plants are not surviving by themselves. Plants, along with their microbial associations, form a unit of survival, which is in science known as a holobiont. And so together, the entire plant, along with all of its microorganisms, determine the fitness and survival unit and how it is going to respond to weather, how it is going to respond to any, disease or pest attack. And we don't, when we kind of, were thinking about building solutions which were more holistic, um, we found that there was there wasn't a place where we could look for microbes that are associated with the plant. We couldn't find a library that we could access and then build our, select from that library and then build our solutions from. So we decided to, kind of do it ourselves. Um, the focus when we started our library was to cover the three biological biodiversity hotspots, which is the Western Ghats, the Himalayan ranges, the northeastern zones. And then we have covered 13 out of the 15 agroclimatic zones. The other two zones require special permissions to go and do samplings and collections. So we went to extreme locations, we went to high rainfall, low rainfall, hot desert, cold desert, undisturbed locations, trying to understand what kind of association plants make, and then, find a commonality as to what makes a survival unit for the plant. And basis that, now we are introducing solutions or trying to re-engineer the microbiome of the plant. One thing kind of led to another, and that's how we started with the aim of getting to 15,000 microbes. Now we are at 18,000 microbes, and of course, we'll keep continuing building that number as well. One thing I wanted to highlight here that BioNexus is a physical library of microbes. It's also a database around the functionality of the microbes that are there in the library. And it's not a resource. I mean, we've taken a lot of pain to build that resource, but it's not a resource that we want to keep to ourselves. We want people to come and see and explore how, they can make use of this resource. So we are very collaborative in nature, and so whoever's in this panel is interested, we'd love to explore partnerships.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. So thank you so much, Renika ji. We'll move on to Dr. Praveen. Sorry for losing you there, and good to have you back.
No.
I think if you can continue, and just you were talking about coffee as a commodity and the connection with technology and regenerative agriculture on coffee, and then we'll follow up on the next question. Thank you.
Okay. So as the coffee board, we encourage any innovations that definitely help in this regenerative agriculture. So coffee board has set up an exclusive incubation center in collaboration with Niti Aayog's Atal Innovation Mission. So we incubate innovative startups who are trying to solve the underlying problems in the coffee and allied sectors. So basically, as I told, we have technology evaluation centers where the startups can make use of those facilities and also work with scientists who are part of Central Coffee Research Institute for scientific validation of their innovative solutions. And also, we create a lot of farmer sensitization programs, a lot of orientation programs, and also connect these solution providers to the different communities. It may be farmers associations, roasters associations, or also with the traders association, where they understand what problem they are trying to solve using some innovation based technologies or anything. So as I told, most of the startups are not really exposed to the quality problem. So it becomes a responsibility, not just coffee board, as a government or any other private entity also. So we need to create a repository of quality problem statements and create awareness about what are the existing solutions already there in the market and what is the scope for improvement, and help these early stage startups to get access to required funding, and also help them with the resources for the scientific validation. So to be honest, what has happened, there are so many schemes which are floated by Government of India under various ministries. So startups cannot really keep a track of all these scheme guidelines, how to apply, when is the deadline. So it becomes a very cumbersome task for them. So there should be a single umbrella where only those schemes which are very relevant to be highlighted and reduce all unwanted schemes or irrelevant schemes from there. And the way how we have national policy framework for organic farming. So we also need to introduce something for this regenerative agriculture also. And also as a support system, so we need to have exclusive financial models where our funding models exclusively designed for these kind of startups who are actually trying to bring in regenerative agriculture based technologies. So this helps in more and more youths to concentrate on this, and also they need to get exposed towards these validation and other resources which are available at other R&D institutions. But most of the research and development facilities in our country are not very well connected with the industry or with the startups. Everybody is working in a separate isolation. So there is a lot of gap that exists. So whatever technologies they are developing, that is there only for the lab purpose. It is not coming to the land. Okay. So we as a coffee board, we are trying to bridge this gap, help our startups to understand the problem areas, work closely with the farmers and other associations, validate their problems through farmers and also with the scientists and experts within the coffee board network, and give them a platform where they can test their solutions and get the results, and also help them in scaling up their solutions, connecting them with the investors and other ecosystem farmers. So they join us as an early stage start. They go out as with the proper scalable business models.
Sure. No, thank you so much for that, Dr. Praveen. If I can ask you one follow-up, if you can, give a little bit of and a detail with some examples. So one example maybe of a technology which promotes regen or which makes regen more accessible, affordable, or easy to adopt. Can you give one example of something that you believe is a success, and get into a little bit of why do you feel that success happened? Was it the founder? Was it the policy? Was it the finance? What actually led to the success of this particular tech and its adoption and scale? And if you can think of one example on the flip side where it has failed, but you really have done some analysis into what can people learn from that failure. If you can give both those examples, I think it'll be helpful for the audience.
Okay. So I'll start with the second one. Instead of calling it as a failure, I can call it as an area where they can improve actually, because a lot of effort has been gone. So one of the startup based in Davangere, Karnataka. So they are exclusively working with the farmers to bring a residue-free rice to the market. So basically, it is a biotechnology based solution which helps in coming with this residue-free rice cultivation. The solution is really good, and the farmers are able to get the premium price for whatever they are growing. But as a startup, they are not able to scale up. One reason being, they're not ready to seek any additional investments from any private investors. So they are stuck only with the government grants. Okay, so they are really not ready to expose themselves to the scalable business models. So we as a policymakers, we have given enough guideline supports and relevant schemes, but still there is some hesitation and they are not able to scale up. And they need to really work on bringing this solution not only for rice, even for the other crops as well. So I don't say it as a failure. We can call it as an area where they need to improve, and it holds good for many of the startups. Okay. And in the other side, successful, I can talk about one of our incubating startups, startup known as Farmitopia. So Mr. Jaikumar is also there in the session, the founder of this startup. So basically, they offer exclusive farm advisory services through their mobile platform known as CropMint. So they provide advisory on precision and also personalized farm design, which can help in following the regenerative agriculture practices. And also they try to connect the farmers with the ecosystem, agri ecosystem. So this is basically to bring sustainability and also stability in the farming practices through their app. So Farmito. Okay. And I can give you one more example of another startup who is incubated with us, known as the Promagicel. So basically, they are a biotechnology-based firm which they create nanoparticles with salts and all that. So once this coffee, okay, once the cherry is plucked, once they wash it, so the washed or the water, so it has a lot of toxic elements in it. You cannot use it back for agriculture purposes. So that has to be treated before you use it for any other purpose. So there are a lot of chemicals that are available for the treatment of water, and again it harms the soil. So this startup has developed a biotechnology-based solution. So where the bioenzymes will act on removing all the toxic elements, and it will restate the water to its original position, so that you can use that water back for your regular agriculture purposes. So this startup is having only very few clients, but they are able to get very good revenue, and they are looking for investments and all. So as a coffee board, so we are trying to support them with whatever way possible, be it giving incubation services or connecting them with the right companies, B2B, and also try to highlight them in whatever platform possible. So we are trying to do that.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Praveen, with that. And thank you. I'll move over to the audience questions. So I will request the audience to please put in your questions in the chat, and we'll sort of start asking the panelists some of these questions. So there are already a couple of questions are there, so maybe I can try to rehash and ask these questions, try to summarize as well. So I think there's a Sanjay AP from Bazaar, and so we'll take your question this time. I think last time there was no time, so they weren't able to take the question. So maybe Hemendra ji, if you can help answer the question. I think finally the crux of the question is that, you know, they have this idea, they've pitched it to government, they've pitched it to investor, and they're being told that, you know, the problem statement is very genuine, but many people have come and gone, you know, and it's a graveyard of startups, and they really want to sort of ask, you know, how is it possible to continue along this line, because it's trying to compete with a very well-established mandi system. So any insights around this, Hemendra ji, that can help the enterprise? I think your screen is frozen. Renuka ji or Dr. Praveen, anything on this?
Okay, so what I would suggest is, see, whenever they approach any investors for funding, so they need to really understand the psychology behind the investor, also why they want to invest in a startup. Basically, they need to understand what is the decision-making process of an investor. And sometimes the startups make mistakes of sharing too much of information in their pitch deck. So they talk only about the technicalities, they miss out the actual business terms. Sometimes they talk too much about the business, and they don't really highlight the USP or the innovation in their pitch. So for example, so some startups who, when they apply for funding programs, earlier I was part of Ministry of Agriculture under Rashtriya Vikas Yojana. So where startups used to come up with a lot of jargons like AI, ML, blah, blah, blah for agriculture. They are good in technology development. They don't have any agronomist in their team. Okay. And they don't even have a mentor who can really to understand the scientific part of the solution development. So what I suggest is not just for Mr. Sanjay, anybody who really wants to understand why the investors are not ready to invest in your solution. So you need to ask certain questions for yourself. Okay, how what is the ROI for the investor? Okay, and what kind of solutions that you have developed, and what is the competitive analysis that you have done, and what is the cost benefit analysis for your end consumer. Okay, that needs to be clearly thought, and what is the USP and how good you are at presenting your proposal. Okay, it should be balanced, both your technicalities as well as your business terminology. So how good you can narrate your story. Okay, if you can work on that, definitely that will work in favor of you. So if required, you can send your brief pitch deck to me by email. Maybe next week, I can personally go through your pitch deck and give you feedback on where you can improve. You can do that.
That's really kind. I think, Sanjay ji, please feel free to get Dr. Praveen's email and email him. That's a really great offer. The other question that's coming in, I think specifically is for Dr. Renu. And this is Mr. Jaykumar from Farmitopia. Mainly, how do we measure microbiome? How can we emphasize certain microbes to be incorporated in different degrees? Any light that you can shed on that question, Dr. Renuka?
Yeah, hi. It's not very easy to, measure the entire microbiome. So what we have to do is go for sequencing methodologies itself. That's the only way to measure the entire microbiome, because even if we go for, isolation and growing of the microbes, there's only a specific type of or very small percentage of microbes that show up on the culture medium. So the only way to understand the entire microbiome is to do sequencing, use sequencing related approaches. Also, it is important to have a good number of samples when you are doing this microbiome analysis, that is from different locations, from different kind of agronomic practices, from different fields, where different kind of varieties are grown of the same crop, so that you are able to understand what is the overlap between all of the studies that you are seeing. How can we change this microbiome? I think, firstly, again, it's not an isolated kind of outcome. Firstly, we have to change soil and soil-related characteristics. So, having better soil has to be the primary focus, because soil structure determines the microclimatic zones, whether it is an aerobic condition, whether it's anaerobic condition. So even if you add good microorganisms in the soil, and if the soil structure does not support those microorganisms, they are not going to grow there. They're not going to form associations, and therefore you will not be able to shift the population. So on one hand, you have to focus on restoring the soil structure, and on the other hand, you have to, from your earlier analysis, find out what is missing in the soil, and kind of add those kind of microorganisms back into the soil. It's again not a single application gives result kind of a process. It is a systemic thing. It requires, if the soil is very degraded, would require seasons before any outcome is seen.
Thank you for that, Dr. Renuka. I will take the question on the AI. It's addressed, and please feel free to also add to it, Dr. Praveen and Dr. Renuka. So I do believe that AI can truly be built from a farm-centric, and it can transform the agri sector. I think more and more, as you all can see, it's getting a lot more better. The accessibility to AI, the ability to customize and use and really kind of develop AI from a need-based perspective. So just just as an example, we work with Apurva AI, and they are truly building out a sector level brain, which is powered by the voices of farmers. So typically AI is great for doing qualitative analysis, which is very difficult to come by otherwise, right? So how do you look at voices of farmers and voices of practitioners and experts in multiple languages, right? So how can you make sure that the knowledge that you currently see in other Western AIs is that it's very top to bottom knowledge, it is documented knowledge, it is very kind of formally produced knowledge. But certain voice enabled AIs can truly transform the way in which knowledge is produced, knowledge is shared. Like end users themselves can become experts of having adopted certain technologies, of having unlocked certain schemes. The fact that it's now available on WhatsApp and you can just ask a voice query and you can get answers, which is brilliant, right? And so, similar to that, there's another product called Apurva.impact, which we've been using, where you can actually, do scaled surveys, again, voice enabled surveys in multiple languages. And the AI is really able to generate analysis which spans from, patterns to biases to, things like that. So you can also control certain products. Like there's another AI that we work with where you can actually feed it exactly the documents and videos and audios that you may want, and then you can query it and it will tell you exactly from that piece, and it'll give you that video piece, which really is relevant to what your ask is. So it really makes us rethink about the way in which capacity building, mentorship, these things are thought through, right? So I do feel like AI can play a huge role. I think Dr. Mathur also gave a few examples of data and AI layered data that can really transform. And I think India is moving towards that, and we should continue along that path as well. But Dr. Renuka, Dr. Praveen, anything you want to add on the AI piece, AI and Agri piece?
Okay. So basically, AI for agriculture in India is still evolving. So most of the AI models require a large data set to generate certain recommendations. But the biggest challenge is how to get this data and what is the quality of the data that is being collected. Okay. So, and if it is for farming, so most of the time the data needs to be generated by the farmer, and he has to upload it to the system. And what is the incentive that he gets by doing that? So there are certain gaps that needs to be addressed. So some of our startups are really finding it challenging to introduce these AI models specifically for crops like coffee, because coffee is grown in most of the forest region. So since it is a hard labor, okay, and there is no much of machinery, advanced machinery being used during harvesting and post-harvesting process. So that becomes quite a challenging, unlike any other crops. But however, we have startups who are using image processing, sorting and grading purposes, which can also detect defects within the coffee beans, and also clearly give certain analytical information based on the data sets already being created for that. But however, at the farm level, it is a little difficult. But few startups are working on smart coffee estate management, where they have certain sensors and it generates some data. And through that data, certain recommendations will be generated. And on a vernacular language, not only just English, even with other languages also. And since most of the farmers will not understand languages basically given in English or Hindi. Even startups are thinking of coming with some sign languages or a color coding or some symbolic representation, which helps them to understand what action needs to be taken once a particular color is highlighted or a particular notification is appearing on their cell phone or the system that is installed. So as I told, still it is evolving, and at least in coffee crop, it is still evolving.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Praveen. There are a couple of questions around water, and it's a recurring theme, so I thought maybe I'll ask it in one go itself. And this is open to the panelists. and I know some examples were already given on, water in terms of, reducing the water intake, but specifically given that, groundwater is going to be one of the biggest challenges, and the factors that will affect this will be all the way from selection of crop to your, irrigation pattern, to your, soil and water protection, all the way to, the type of pumps, etc., that are used, right? So it's generally a combination of things, and water is never a one size, a one solution can sort of transform, right? So any recommendations on how should stakeholders be approaching the issue of water and the depletion of water tables across the board?
So Uda, I can take it up. I'm sorry I dropped out because of the internet issues. So no, egg water is extremely important subject for us to discuss. Just to give perspective to the audience here is that, on an average every year as a country, we get 1400 BCM, 1400 billion cubic meter of water, right? And interestingly, 80% of that goes into agriculture. This number is about 50% for China. So just imagine the sheer amount of water which goes into agriculture. Even more challenging statistics is that 50% of the egg water get wasted. Right. So essentially, out of 900 odd BCM, we're wasting 400 odd BCM annually. So I think that is a problem in making. We are now world's among the top 3 water stressed countries. Top 3.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, most part of the country have water levels, groundwater levels, which are becoming dangerous for the even viability of agriculture. The number of tube wells, I think this is a very large number, I can't recall, but 50% of them are going to go dry in next 10 years. So I think that is the status, and that's where water use efficiency has to change, right? Now the big question is, does farmer consider water as a free resource or consider it as a valuable resource, right? So I think that, which is again, I would say more of a behavioral change issue, which will happen over a period of time. I think one thing which needs to be corrected amongst farmer, this perception of water more productivity, which is not necessarily true. I think that is one area where I don't think it's just the innovators who need to work, but I think all of us need to work, and in fact, policy also need to drive it at scale. So in fact, there's a new paradigm which says the productivity of agriculture shouldn't be measured per hectare, but it should be measured per liter, because water is more scarce than land is, right? So I think that is a paradigm shift in the way you see things. And unfortunately, water was always something which is available in plenty and can use at will. I think that has to change. Again, as I said at the beginning of my talk, that I don't think there's any dearth of innovations to improve water use efficiency. You will see at least a few dozen starters working on smart irrigation, making sure, you measure the soil moisture, you irrigate when it is required, you irrigate, the quantity, the timing of irrigation, everything can be controlled, even remotely controlled, not necessarily you have to be in the field. So there are like bunch of solutions out there, all of them are proven, right? Then there are solutions, other biological solutions and other solutions which also improve water use efficiency. But I think the bigger question is, again, if as an innovator I'm doing it, who's going to pay for it, right? Especially for a resource which is perceived to be free, which is not necessarily free, but perceived to be free. I think those are the larger questions which we should discuss. And I don't think innovation alone is solving for it. There are a lot of other initiatives that need to go hand in hand to solve for water. And again, we shouldn't be seeing water in isolation with soil in isolation with weather. To me, these are three very important components. I call it climate stack, the weather stack, the water stack, and the soil stack. I think all these has to come together, And then you can make meaningful intervention from a farmer perspective to improve productivity, being more efficient, being more climate resilient. So that's my point of view on egg water.
Thanks, Dr. Mathur. So there is one last question, and I thought maybe we can end with this because it's a fairly meaningful question and we can go around the board. I think the question is around how do you build and form meaningful partnerships? I think if we can go around the room, maybe starting with you, Dr. Renuka, on, and you mentioned specifically, I think you mentioned we are very collaborative and we are, most welcoming to other people, and how do we work with, but specifically if you can give some examples and with some common pitfalls on, how people may think of partnerships and collaborations. They're great words to use, but in practice, they end up being very different. So if you can shed some light around how do you best prepare and build the most relevant partnerships, that would really help.
Yeah, thank you. It's very difficult, to put in words like how do you build meaningful partnerships. But I think we all have to understand, and like Hemendra sir was saying, that you have to love the problem very deeply and passionately. And I think it starts there, because when you love the problem very deeply and passionately, you very quickly realize that it isn't for only you to be, successful in solving it. If you think that only I'm going to solve this problem and, restrict yourself from talking to other people or having, joint efforts, you will never solve the problem. The problem is so complex, so huge, so large, that if you really, really are passionate about solving the problem, you'll automatically think that, gosh, I cannot do this on my own. And that's where the entire collaborative mindset comes in. And that's where it kind of, stems from that. I need to solve this problem. I need to do this with my technology. If it is solving the problem, if my technology is not solving the problem, then it has to be something else that I build in. So your love for your product, your technology, your domain of area of working is secondary. The problem is primary. And that itself, if we are thinking in that manner, that itself will drive partnerships. For us, partnerships is a way of life, because at Bioprime, our heart and soul and our core DNA is innovation, R&D, and technology, which means that getting to the market, getting to the farmers is not something that we are great at. That is not something that we naturally excel at. And so we kind of build partnerships with people who know how to do this, who have spent decades doing this, instead of getting into the market and challenging these exact same people. So we believe that combining expertise is going to bring more lasting and more impactful results. And at the end of the day, that is why we are here. So from our side, our university, academic core DNA is centered around, having research done, which is impactful at global standards, and that would have never been done without partnerships. So I think that is kind of seeped into our company ethos as well.
Thank you, Dr. Renuka. Over to you, Dr. Praveen. Any final words, and specifically any recommendations on how do you build meaningful partnerships?
Yeah, basically, we believe in outcome-based partnerships. There are a lot of startups who run behind a lot of other ecosystem partners for partnership, but they need to really understand to build outcome-based partnership is very, very important. So we as an incubation center, we exclusively host free monthly networking meetings. And when the registration is open, so a lot of people register, but we individually go through each and every entry. And we see if somebody who register for these networking meetings, either they should come with a valid challenge that they want to get the answer through the forum, or they should be a contributor. in any capacity who can help the people within the forum. So we try to bring both people who are facing problems and who can provide solutions. And this has helped us to create our vibrant startup ecosystem from the coffee board. And we are very open to collaborate with any other ecosystem partners. So we come as a knowledge partner, outreach partner, and also we host a lot of events, programs on a cost sharing basis as well. So we want to make sure that we create a platform for the solution providers and also for people who want to share their genuine problems that can be solved through this platform. So one piece of advice with startups is before you reach out to any solution providers, please do your homework. Don't just blindly go and talk to them. Do your homework, do proper research, and go with relevant questions. Don't utilize your time also wisely and don't waste the time of the ecosystem partners also. Definitely Hemendra sir, Renuka madam, and myself and many other people who are part of this today's webinar will have a lot of things to offer. So you have to reach out through proper channel and be very clear what you want from the partnership.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Praveen. Now over to you, Dr. Mathur. Any final words?
Yeah, no, I think Renuka and Praveen has put it very succinctly, and I like the phrase "partnership is the way of life." I think that's a very nice phrase to take from this webinar. And yeah, all I can say is to reiterate the role of partnership in a sector like agriculture. It's as I've said it multiple times. Agriculture, you're essentially solving a multi-dimensional problem, right? And for problems of this magnitude and this diversity, you need multidisciplinary approach to solve for it, right? As an innovator, how much skill can you acquire from the very beginning to solve for everything, right? Next to impossible, right? So that's where I think I like the entrepreneurs who understand what their core is and what is not the core. What is peripheral to what they do. And this core and peripheral definition can also change over a period of time. It's not static. But I think getting that understanding brings a lot of focus. And whatever is kind of peripheral but important for your business model to succeed, right? You need to get right partners on board, right? That is how it works. And that really decides your capital efficiency and your ability to break even and make money, etc. And I think it could be any partner. I think generally I've seen partnerships at multiple levels, which are needed for an agri-tech startup who really want to build 100, 500 million, probably $1 billion revenue business. There's a partnership with the state governments. To me, is becoming more and more critical. They call the shots when it comes to agriculture. So knowing them, figuring out state government support becomes very, very critical at some point of time. Some governments are also very progressive, providing support as to a lot of agriculture based innovations. So how do you leverage that? How do you leverage some of the schemes which government is providing? So one is government policy makers. Second, I would say grassroots organizations. You can't have employees in villages. They won't be. They will take so much time to figure it out. Whereas you have a lot of organizations and entrepreneurs who understand the village ecosystem very well. So I call it this Bangalore to Baravaki journey. If you have to succeed in Bangalore, you need to have someone in Baravaki, as in someone in the village who can partner, who trust in the local community, right? You may have the best solution, but you won't be trusted. As an entrepreneur, you need someone who's trusted in the community where you are trying to sell the solution. So grassroots organization, FPOs, BLEs, micro entrepreneurs all fall in this category. Then of course partnership with research institutions, especially for product deep tech based startup, very critical. You need validation from time to time, especially in a country like India. We have 14 climatic zone. So for each climatic zone, sometimes you need a validation with a different university, different KVK and all that. So how do build that. Then I think another important thing which is emerging is partnership with financial institutions, because this industry is so working capital intensive. Whether you are selling inputs, whether you are buying output, storing output, processing it, there's a working capital cycle, and cost of capital for a startup or innovator is going to be super high. So how do you partner? How do you build innovative financing solutions for OPEX, CAPEX? Partnering with some of the financial institutions or fintechs is another important thing. And lastly, partnership, peer-to-peer partnership. I think, as I said, it's a very, so we have some thousands of startups, etc., but it's still a close community. Most of us know each other, and I think there's a sense of collaboration to help each other. I think it's very unique to agri-tech somehow. I work in other sectors also, but I think the kind of bonhomie and camaraderie I see in this sector is probably better than others. So I think peer-to-peer learning, peer-to-peer sort of exchange of ideas, I think that all helps. So yeah, for all people who are on this call, I think the key is this whole, how do you solve for this conundrum of build, buy, borrow? That is where your business model need to be validated day in, day out. What you need to be building, when I say borrow, essentially partnering with someone else, that decides your trajectory and sometimes even survival.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mathur. Thank you, Dr. Renuka. Thank you, Dr. Praveen. I think the one key thing that I'm taking away from this, and I'm guessing also the audience, is really, this is a really systemic issue. In order to succeed or stabilize anything to do with tech and regen, given that soil, climate, water, crop, pricing, markets, all of these things are very, very interconnected. And on the back end, you really need those partnerships with, whether it's tech, finance, policy, civil society, capacities, etc. mentioned. And I love some of the key takeaways from each of you, which I just want to reiterate and summarize. Intention and passion goes a long way, Dr. Renuka. I think just being after the problem and you just way of life, and the fact that you will naturally build partnerships if you care enough about the problem. Dr. Praveen, I think you mentioned a lot on, doing your homework, like being clear and making sure you don't waste time, because we really need to get things right. And there is a certain sense of agency also in solving, because given climate and given, the inclusion challenges, we cannot afford to waste time within the system. And I think wonderful to hear from you, Dr. Mathur, really kind of reiterating the fact that you need partnerships at multiple levels. But I think really the heart of it is trust building, and trust building with a certain intention in mind. So I'll end there, and thank you so much to all the panelists and all of you for joining us today. Hope you were able to take some good lessons and key insights, and please feel free to reach out to any of us. With that, Ananya, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Huda ma'am. Thank you, Hemendra sir, Dr. Praveen, and Renuka ma'am. So it was really a wonderful and engaging discussion today, and I hope that the participants also has got really beneficial insights from the session today. And thank you so much for taking out time and enlightening us all on this important aspect of agriculture. And we also look forward to seeing some innovative applications also coming up from our audience in the Greenovation SustainAgri Challenge. And we encourage you all to submit your applications for the challenge. And before we conclude, I would also like to announce that our next webinar is scheduled for the 18th of July at 4:30 on converging schemes and policies for food system change. So we will be sharing the details and rolling out the registration forms shortly. And we look forward to having you all over there. So thank you everyone for joining us and being with us today and supporting us in this journey. So with this, I would like to wrap up today's session. So have a great evening ahead. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone.